Hey guys, and welcome back to today's video. I just briefly wanted to talk about experiencing God as the Father. So to start this off, I just want to say, why is it important to experience God as your Father? In our life, our parents are usually our first loves. They teach us, and I don't want to say directly, but they teach us how to navigate in this world, whether it be through familial relationships, intimate relationships, colleague. We experience the world by first watching our environment and who we are around and who we're with, and those directly responsible for our care. So today I'll share with you 3 instances where God showed up as a father for me, and that love allowed me to grow, allowed me to heal, and then allowed me to pour that overflow of what I received into other people's lives. So our first instance with God the Father. This came about where I had just left a ministry that I was a part of, and I knew that therapy was something that I needed to partake in, just based on experiences and things like that, or baggage that I was still holding. I knew that it would be important and integral to my walk. So initially I sought out therapists. All I knew about was BetterHelp, and so I used that at first to navigate, and I knew some of the qualifications that I wanted. And every time I tried to find a therapist, and at first it would be women therapists, I would try to find someone and our schedule just would not work out. There was nothing inherently wrong with these people, nothing like that. It just did not work out. I was seeking I was just trying to find someone, and I don't think I was going about it prayerfully, and that was the first dilemma. Once I started relinquishing control and allowing God to bring forth the person he wants to pour into me, that's when things got a lot easier. So I remember I had spent time just scouring the internet, trying to find someone who's close to me and trying to find a therapist. And then I got tired of it because I'm like, I keep going into dead ends. Like, people I think are perfect, our schedules just conflict. And so I was like, you know what, God, I give it to you. I surrender this to you. I know that you desire the best for me. I know that through your might and through your strength, all things are possible. So the therapist that I was looking for, God, I give it to you. I know that you'll provide the best person, the best fit for me. And I kid you not, I just stopped looking. For 2 weeks, did not go on app, nothing. I randomly got, I think, an email from a therapist on the app that had messaged me. And I'm reading over just some of their qualifications, reading over some of the heavy topics that they're usually, adept at. And I'm reading it, and this therapist took the time to tailor at least like a page and a half to me of why he thinks that he could be an assistant to me, or just the things that I mentioned in my own brief telling of myself, things that I wanted to endure, things that I wanted to overcome, and things that I wanted to talk about in therapy. So reading that long message, I was like, I think this is it, but I'm going to ask God, I'm going to pray about it because I gave it to him. I made that prayer, and after the first session, it was apparent that God indeed handpicked this person for me. I would say out of these 6 to 8 sessions each week, well, not each week, but there was a session each week for 6 to 8 weeks, there was so much that I learned about myself, so much I learned about how I actually receive information from the world, things that I took personal. And there was a paradigm shift in the midst of all of this, because having a mindset change and now being able to look at events from the outside, long story short, it was very healing for me. It allowed me to have more of an objective view versus just harnessing and harboring so far in on how I felt. Because now once I got past how I felt, it was like, okay, so what was really the intent behind this? How do we move forward from this? And that just allowed me to grow so much as an individual, taking myself out of the center, but knowing there were so many times that I held back tears and just different situations and just tried to suck it up and grin and bear it. And here I was as this adult, just in therapy, crying, letting out, I don't even want to say secrets because there were really no secrets that I had, but just letting the innards of my being out. Things that I would have and did not discuss with anybody else, as far as how I interpreted the world, how I interpreted what people said. And to have that view or that fathering or that covering in that moment, it spoke a lot to me about God himself and how he is this safe place. He is our therapist. He is so much more. And when we try to box God in, that's when we miss out, because he's so willing to show up for us in any way that we need him to be. All we have to do is just surrender and be willing to receive what God has for us. So instance number 2, I had also, this is around the same time, but maybe like a couple of months apart, I had left a ministry, and I remember just feeling at a loss, mainly because I spent so much time with these people and I really didn't develop a relationship with God for myself, and I was seeking individuals to see what God was saying versus going to God myself, or having a dream or something. Instead of going to God myself, I was seeking people to give me answers or trying to take a shortcut to God. And so when I made a prayer, removes myself, there was this place where I reached where I realized the initial fire and passion that I had for God had subdued. I was not praying as I should be. I was not reading or studying as I should be. And I just had to sit there like, I don't know what I'm doing. I know that this is not right, and I know that I've went astray and I made a mistake, but I don't know how to get back to where I was. And in that time, I think I cried a lot, because at this time now I'm just more open to my emotions and feeling exactly what it is versus actually just hiding and just downplaying what I really feel. And so I'm crying because I'm like, God, how do I get back to you? How do I reignite this? What do I do? What did I do wrong? And there was nothing wrong that I did, but there was a training or just a elevation that had to come. I had to learn how to seek God for myself, to harbor this relationship myself, to look to God and not to a person to stand in the gap between me and God, that he desires to know me or have me know him on a personal level. So during this time, I spent a lot of time alone, as I said, and I began to just cry. And even in prayer, when I started to pray or initiate prayer, I really didn't have much to say, but my heart had a lot to say. So even as I shed tears, it was like my heart was still speaking on my behalf. Because I kid you not, after like a couple of months of just slowly trying to work my way back into Christianity or work my way back into salvation, I had this inkling to just start to pray a little bit more, whether it be 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5, 6, to try to read a little bit more. And that desire kept growing. Unbeknownst to myself, this desire that the more of God you receive and that light begins to fester in your body, the more of it you want. And so as I was starting to just build back up this affinity for God, to build back up wanting to seek him, I had this inkling to just, you know what? There was a ministry that I used to watch from time to time. I would participate in their prayers. I'll go and I'll attach myself to this because I still need to be fed spiritually. And as I did that, I was welcomed back with open arms, and it was warm. There was no condemnation or shame that for 3 months I had been astray. And when I got out that prayer call, I cried because I'm like, so this is home. So this is where you've attached me. This is the next step. And out of just going to prayer, going to Bible study every week, I ended up just having this desire in my heart to serve under this ministry. Initially, I thought I was done with ministry altogether, serving. I had reached a point where I was like, God, I don't really know if the call that you placed on my life, if I really want that, if I really want to partake in that. And the very thing that I wanted to distance myself from, I found myself wanting to attach myself to it again. I wanted to serve. I wanted to be a blessing however I could. And that came from a spiritual father or a leader who was good at pastoring the flock. Someone who was able to care about me as an individual and not just what I could provide for the ministry, but wanting to know about my well-being and in the sense of my relationship with God, not wanting wanting to be that middleman between me and God, but wanting to make sure that I was able to harbor that relationship myself. And in that, which I really didn't think was possible, that people see you outside of your gifts, see you outside of what you bring or what you can. So outside of seeing people for as far as what they can bring to what you already have established, but seeing that individual outside of your ministry, outside of what you already have and what God has for them, that maybe in the long run they are not meant to stay here, but this is their feeding ground for right now, such as a time such as this. And to have that type of fathering, that type of pastoral care, it opened my heart up, because initially I spent so much time by myself, and I got to this place where I really didn't want to be around people. I really didn't care for people. I could care less because they had not been good to me, so why would I go out of my way to be good to anyone else? And so just these two occurrences, this love of God, seeing him as a father, this started to pour into me and just overflow. And that overflow started to seep out. And I was like, you cannot give what you don't have. And so because out of this overflow of love that I was receiving from God, I wanted to now be around people. I'm like, God, I spend so much time closed off, but I want to be of service. I want to help. Put me directly in places where I can be of service, where I can be a blessing. Show me how to do that. And this, to me, like listening to it now, that person who didn't want to be around people, who was very secluded, seems so unfamiliar. But nonetheless, we're here now. The third instance where God showed up for me as a father was, like I said, I went to LA to get baptized, and I got baptized on Good Friday. My family, of course, wanted to come, but to move a family of 6 to LA for a couple of days is quite expensive. So I was like, this was just something I wanted to do by myself, and I wanted to just be alone with God. Like, I knew that this is something that I'm about to make this declaration with me and God. I don't care how anybody else feels about it. This is where I need to be. This is where I'm going. I'm doing this. This is between me and God. And I get there. And of course, while I had this agenda and I know that I needed to go by myself, at this point, I was like, dang, I don't have, this is something usually your family is there to witness. And I came by myself. And I was okay with it. But at some extent, within the depths of my heart, I was not. And so on the first day, I'm waiting outside, we're waiting in line, and there was this older white gentleman waiting in front of me. And he was having a conversation with someone else, but God works in mysterious ways, and somehow we sparked up a conversation that led to me telling him about my own testimony, and then from there telling him, like, tomorrow on Friday, I flew all the way here to get baptized. And he was like, what? This is your first time? I'm like, yes, this is my first time getting baptized. You haven't been baptized? No, I have not been baptized before. This is the first time. And this joy that it brought on his face was something that I had not seen before. To have a stranger have so much joy from an action that you were doing that did not even directly benefit them, that was new to me. And so I remember just as we stood outside and we were talking to more people that were waiting outside the church, he just kept saying, she's getting baptized tomorrow. I was like, can you believe it? It taught me to be proud of that moment, because a lot of times I used to be afraid to give myself credit, or I would be dismissive of things that I was doing or victories and things like that. But it taught me to see that as a victory, that this declaration that I was making to God is important and is something to hold dear. So we ended up sitting together at the service, and for the next couple of days we actually sat together at almost every service. And so on that actual Friday when I got baptized, a couple of people came with like their brothers and sisters, their husband or their wife. So they had someone to greet them after they had been baptized. And initially it wasn't something that I thought about, but when it came to being my turn, it was something that I thought about in like the back of my mind. And I'm like, dang, I don't know. It's just me and you, God. Like, it's just us. And so the older gentleman, he ended up videoing it for me. And so I was able to share that with my family. So when I get back to my seat, he shows me the video and he's standing there with open arms. And I'm like, of course. And there was this love and this joy in this moment of having people, because it wasn't just him, but having people around you who know really nothing about you, but you all came for a certain purpose and it united you. And seeing that moment with his arms stretched out, it was kind of like seeing God be like, I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you, Chetehyast. And there was a lot of times where seeking God as the Father, I expected him to manifest in my room and say, thus says the Lord, this, that. Because while that is very much possible, God shows up in other individuals. It's just how open are you to receiving him and how perceptive are you in when God is moving. And I'll say, if it had not been for the love that was starting to fester, the light that was starting to fester inside, I don't think that I would have been able to receive that moment in the way that I did when I got there. And so just these instances of having God the Father show up for me as a therapist, as a pastor, as a bystander, you had to realize, like, dang, God cares for me so much as a child, as an individual, in my purpose, outside of my purpose. And that very thing, it gives you a point of reference. And as I stated earlier, I spent so much time by myself and I was like, God, this love that you've given me, I gotta share it. I want to share it. Like, what do you need me to speak here? What do you need me to do? And so now going about relationships, friendships, there was this initial thing that I had in the back of my mind. Like, God, I've spent a lot of time alone. How do I know who is actually for me? How do I know the people that you've actually sent to speak and be a blessing to me? Now I have that point of reference. And I won't say everybody will show up in a fatherly way, but I will know because love is an action. God is love. For God so loved the world, he gave. And so I understand this as, how do people treat me? How do they show up for me? And now I'm realizing it's okay. So what does support from this individual look like? What does positivity, what life is this person speaking into me? Is this something that God himself would have me be a part of, listen to? Now I have a point of reference on which I don't want to say judge every relationship, every friendship off of, but I have a point of reference to know what I'm feeling inside, how it sits with my spirit. Is this something that God wants me to be a part of? Is this individual someone that God has sent for me? Is this person temporary? Is this person seasonal? Or is this person for the long run? Going off of actions and not just emotions and not just what people are saying, but their love for God, how they show up for you, how they show up for strangers. All I want to say is, I pray that you get to experience God the Father, because experiencing him in that capacity allows you to see him in so many other ways. When we try to limit God and who he can be, we miss out on a lot of opportunities. We do. So I'm asking you, first allow him to show up as your Father, because as I said, that's like your first love. And watch how things shift. Watch how your reactions, watch how your relationships, how you carry yourself, how you spend time with other people, how that changes, how it manifests into a place of wanting to be that vessel of light, wanting to do as Christ did. So thank you guys for tuning in this week. I'll see you in the next video. Blessings.